go. Well, now we're online. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to an episode of the BAMF Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty, and we are here with sort of an unusual theme for our pop culture roundtable. Our theme is stuff we love, and this has been suggested by one of our reviewers on iTunes that we were perhaps getting too negative. So this is our chance to, actually, hang on, here it is. Taliesin Paludo on June 4th, 2016 said, I used to really enjoy this show and all the regulars on it, with the exception of Walt. He likes you, Walt. It seems to become guys complaining about shows / books / movies they haven't personally watched or read. It's rare when someone on the show, on his show, okay, there's a T in the word the, but I won't be a bitch and mention that, has seen anything that or have anything good to say about it. So this is the episode where we talk about stuff we love, that we've seen or read. So, Taliesin Pluto, our hats off to you, and I hope we make you proud with this one. So, and joining me in this noble effort today, I'm going to read from left to right. I have Jason Tondro, Dr. Comics on Blogspot. How you doing, Jason?
I'm real well, and I know Polito. I know who this is, so this bud's for you.
All right, cool. We also have Professor McGee. That would be Christopher McLaughlin of Green Ronin fame. How you doing, Chris?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
I'm right. And Walt Rebillard of Walt. You do so many things. Hadron Studios, Supers RPG, frequent co-host of the podcast. Glad to have you on again.
They like me. They really, really like me.
You have a certain animal magnetism, like Tarzan. Which
well,
I hear was a great movie, but I haven't seen.
I saw it. I saw it 2 weeks ago, and it was fun. Starting talking about things that we like. Like I liked it. It was a fun movie. I was surprised by how much it kind of echoed elements of the Disney film, which I wasn't expecting, but not in a bad way. And of course, I mean, the special effects were pretty amazing. All the animal interactions and everything. But yeah, so it was a fun movie.
my only question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
My only question is, how was Sam Jackson in it? Because I'm a huge fan of Sam Jackson.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, he's a new character, of course, for the Tarzan mythos. One of the big changes that they had in the show was that they made Jane like someone who had been living in Africa for most of her life. She had been raised in Africa by her parent. Her father was a teacher, and so she was kind of like almost like a missionary, except that she wasn't a missionary, but in that kind of idea. And Jackson's character was there to kind of represent America in the movie, and because he's explicitly talking about slavery, like there's this whole subplot about how the bad guy, the King of Belgium, is using his agent in Africa to essentially enslave the natives. And so Jackson is there explicitly as a veteran of the Civil War, trying to bring this issue of slavery in Africa to light. So that's kind of his job. Now, he also is like really good with a rifle, and he kind of has the. You remember in Lord of the Rings when like they're taking the hobbits to Isengard, and everyone goes off running, and Gimli's kind of like the comic relief, saying, we have dwarves very good in short sprints, and Jackson kind of has that role for a while. He has kind of the comic relief. How does the American who runs going to keep up with Tarzan, the ape man? But he's Samuel Jackson, so it's hard to really. I mean, he can make any job, no matter how on the surface ridiculous or forced, seem funny and cool. So you have to give him that.
I gotta say, I was very impressed with. I looked at his IMDb page not too long ago,
Yeah.
and he's not a young guy.
No,
I mean, isn't he? He's in his 60s, right?
Well, this is the male Hollywood lead. I mean, you can play parts 20, 30 years younger. I mean, look how old Daniel Craig is. Daniel Craig,
Yeah.
and he's playing James Bond and stuff. And when Idris Elba was asked if he wanted to be Bond, he said no. Like, I'm way too old for that. I mean, he was obviously kidding, because like you don't have to be young to play a young character in Hollywood if you're male.
I gotta tell you, Idris Elba, I could listen to that guy recite a laundry list.
Yeah. Has anybody seen him in Star Trek yet? I haven't seen Star Trek.
I saw Star Trek this last week, actually.
Chris,
How was it?
Star Trek? You're like the Star Trek dude.
I don't touch fake Trek.
Okay.
The Abrams verse can burn in fire.
Well, we have to stay positive today, but
Stuff we love.
I hear what you're coming from. I do hear that.
Well, I liked it. I can give a short review. And Chris, you can plug wax in your ears if you want to for a minute.
Look, I don't hate if other people love things.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
they just asked me on this show to give my opinion, so I give my opinion. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie about what I think. I mean, just because I hate something, you go love it. Everything in this world needs love. There you go. That's positive.
The highest praise I can give for Star Trek movie, and I haven't said this for any Star Trek movie ever, is that this one actually feels like an episode of the original series.
Right. By which you mean?
really-
Tell me what you mean.
Yeah, that's positive for me. I really enjoyed that about this. They do a lot with the McCoy and Spock dynamic, which has been kind of neglected in the Trek movies, I think.
Yeah.
That said, let me just say I liked it. That was great. A lot of things I liked about it. It's a J.J. Abrams movie.
Yeah.
So
So it's Star Wars.
The action sequences kind of feel like Star Wars, and there's can I give you guys a spoiler?
Sure.
There's a bit at the end where they're fighting a huge drone army, and they're like, how do we stop this fleet of drones? And they go into technobabble, and this guy's like, well, they're communicating via radio frequency, blah, blah, blah. So if we get close enough to have a powerful enough signal and then send noisy and disorienting information over that frequency,
yes,
I think we can disrupt them. And so it's a 100-year-old starship they found on this planet, and the little girl who's been living it has been rocking out to the Beastie Boys and NWA. It's a J.J. Abrams movie. And so they start blasting Beastie Boys, and somehow this makes all the drones... I know it sounds terrible the way I'm describing it. It really does.
I really hope they start dancing.
But it kind of works in a minute, and then as I was walking out the theater, I was like, didn't they do the same thing in Mars Attacks, that Tim Burton movie where they realized that Slim Pickens yodeling make the Martians' heads explode? So if I had a nitpick, that would be it. But otherwise, the characters are handled well, and I understand they're having some troubles meeting the money goals they want to for that movie. But like I said, it feels like an original series episode.
Well, so Chris, what about the new Trek series?
Well, for what little bit we know of it, it sounds positive. I will freely admit I don't get why they're basically begging everybody to download it illegally.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than that, it hasn't aired. There are some good people working on it. It as far as I know, it's not connected to the Abrams verse, so it has every reason to be good.
Well, and I know that you correct me if I'm wrong on this, but
Okay.
the ship, the Discovery.
Yes.
Your long, ongoing, legendary Star Trek campaign.
Yes. Oh Lord.
Was set on a ship called Discovery.
Yeah. We God, I don't want to start talking about my characters, but yeah,
I know that. I mean, yeah.
We started as an undergrad back in the classic series, and then we just kept playing the successor ships to that all the way up to like beyond the next gen timeline by the time I was in grad school.
Now I presume that you picked that name because the space shuttle name.
Well, we were operating off the old FASA rules, and they had a list of like different starship names, and that was the coolest one on the list that had gotten like this badass weaponry upgrade.
Oh.
And I always really liked the FASA Starship Combat System.
Yep, I remember it well.
So that, and I liked the sound of it, and apparently so did the Brian Fuller and the people working on the new Trek TV series.
Well, I presume that it was chosen because, like I said, because of the space shuttle name. I mean,
it didn't hurt. It was something I knew everybody would understand.
Yeah. But from what I can, the rumor that I hear, and it seems to sort of fit with what as you say, what little we have seen, is that this might be set after Enterprise and before the original series.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that rumor. I've heard the rumor it's supposed to be between Star Trek VI and Next Generation.
Well, we have sort of two real clear clues, right? We have one that the ship is based on a Macquarie design.
Uh-huh.
From the 70s Phase 2 era. And second, that the ship's number is like 1031 or something. And so because it's NCC 1031, that's lower than 1701. And so people are guessing that it's from before the Enterprise was built.
No, they're forgetting the USS Constellation was NCC 1071, and that was clearly shown in an episode the same time as Kirk's Enterprise.
Okay,
Look at
well,
the big brain on Chris. All right.
well, so
I've seen these way too many times.
I think this number is 1030 something, and so I think the idea is that it's before the Constellation class was done. Like if the Constellation, as you said, is 1070 something.
1071, because they used an off-the-shelf Enterprise model kit and they just swapped the decals.
Yeah. So this would be before then, and that's why it's a different ship model.
Well, I understand. I'm just saying it wouldn't have to be radically before then.
Correct. Yes, you're right. Yeah, it would be like. Well, I don't think there's that much time. You probably can answer this. How much time passes between the last season of Enterprise and the first season of original series?
If I remember correctly, it's about a century, give or take.
Oh, really? Oh, it's that long.
Well, I think it's a little less than that, but you know, I dropped out of Enterprise before it was done. But I think when they finished up business, they were like roughly like 100 years before Kirk and like maybe 70 or 80 before Pike. And I know your comment section is probably lighting up right now.
Well, that's good. They'll correct us. That's cool.
Well, you know, I didn't actually publicize we were doing this podcast because I want to stay positive. I didn't want, you know, Peanut Gallery going, "Hey, you fuckers, you got that wrong." So you know, you got to manage for the show you want sometimes.
My copy of this of the history of Star Trek is just out of arm's reach, or else I would go look it up.
I'm disappointed I don't have it committed to memory, but that's okay. That's okay.
I can't. There's got to be some room for actual like knowledge to impart to children up here somewhere.
Fair enough. Hey, Walt, what's something you love?
Oh, so much, so little time. I've been watching that TV show for the last couple of seasons, Killjoys. It's just a fun romp on a kind of like a low-tech space opera.
Yeah, I watched the first couple episodes, and it seems like there's been kind of a long struggle in television to grab all of the poor orphaned Firefly fans.
Yes, and that's definitely what they're trying to do. And in this season, they're doing a lot with fun music. They're really tying in some cool bands and fun music into the mix. But there's
getting a little product placement in there. I'm sure the band.
Yeah, and it's just a fun show. But that really kicked off my love of or reinvigorated my love of sci-fi comics. So one of the big ones that I'm really enjoying is a guy out of Boston, Bob Sally. He was actually on our Indie Comic Spotlight that we do periodically. He's got a book called Salvagers, and the whole premise of the book is he was in a bar and they had the original Star Wars playing, and right at the scene when the Death Star blows up, he writes on a napkin, "Who the hell is going to clean up all this shit?" And that's how his idea for Salvagers was born. It's basically about a salvage crew that runs around the universe, basically just looking for salvage. But the interesting part about the book is all because he's educated in literature. Mr. Sally has some great takes on these characters. You got the disgraced military officer. You got the you got the thug who desperately wants to be more than a thug. You got a pilot that's taking this job because she's on probation. It's a fun story. It's really got a lot of heart. And now he's into his second volume, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on. So that's a lot of fun.
It's a smart book. It sounds pretty smart.
It's really a lot. Not only is there a great characterization in the book, but you also have a ton of kind of like pseudo space science that sounds very, very real, and it's definitely tickling that itch.
But like, at no point are they blowing up enemy fleets using the power of the Beastie Boys, right?
No, no, I don't think there's no Sleep Till Brooklyn on the Salvager ships. But that one I'm really enjoying. Ken Brown has a book called Judas Breed. That's if you like the old Alien movies, it's got that kind of feel to it. And I'm kind of he's only into his second issue, but I'm kind of interested to see where that's going as well. Great art team, fantastic visuals, moments of oh crap, which are hard to pull off in a comic. I mean, we've discussed horror comics before, and I remember I can't remember if it was you or Jason or Chris that was talking about Tomb of Dracula. Might have even been D.T. Buccino. But horror comics is so hard to pull off, and reading Judas Breed, you definitely get that sense of oh crap, when you're reading it, because even though it's kind of got that homage to Aliens and that shit is going to go really wrong really fast. You didn't think it was going to go that wrong that fast. So if you get a chance, pick that up. That's a lot of fun too.
Who are the publishers for these books?
They're all independents. All independents. So
they are all available on Comixology. I'll put links in the show notes.
Oh,
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
great. Right on.
Yeah. Think Alike Productions for Salvagers and
And Studios for Judas Breed.
yeah, there you go. But on the superhero side, there's a lot of good stuff as well. I know the third Kickstarter for Shield of the Interceptor is coming up, and that's kind of like a riff on the Arthurian mythos. Basically, in modern times, somebody finds one of the mystical weapons of like the whole King Arthur thing. So there's in the book there's more than just the sword.
Yeah.
There's a shield, there's a mace, there's like and he's there's all this like great images coming out for the upcoming Kickstarter that the writer and publisher J.D. Rosario he's got coming out. So I mean, there's as far as I really enjoy the independents. I mean, I periodically check in on what DC and Marvel are doing these days, but they're just not doing it for me anymore. DC, with the exception of anything somebody will recommend it to me, they feel like before this whole rebirth, they felt like they were all over the map. And Marvel, they just want to beat up their heroes. And I found that the independents, a lot of these guys were taking what I wanted to see in comics as a longtime comics fan, and putting it on a page, which is what drew me to them. And anytime I'm in a comic shop, I'm like, hey, you guys should check this out, and hopefully have them carry it. Of course, we have our friend that's been on the podcast several times, Vito Del Sante and Sean Isaacs. They have Stray. Their Kickstarter's wrapping up this week. And it's running in conjunction with a great charity benefiting non-kill shelters. So if you get a chance to check that out, they're looking to launch their ongoing. So I mean, that's just a couple projects that I'm really digging right now, and it's just really amazing to see that indie comics as a whole is really bursting onto the scene and scratching a lot of the itches that I feel that the big two are just kind of missing.
Well, they say this is the age of independent comics more than ever, just because Kickstarter, if you count total dollars, total issues, Kickstarter is, if you consider that a company, it's like it's as big as like Image Comics in terms of books that are being financed.
I've really been surprised at the level of success that comics have been able to have on Kickstarter. I would have thought that launching a comic through Kickstarter would be virtually impossible. Like maybe at first when Kickstarter was new, but now I didn't figure that you'd be able to do it. But obviously I'm being proven wrong, so that's all to the good.
Well, you can look at. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I just googled Shield of the Interceptor, and the Kickstarter is already halfway done on Kickstarter. They got 15 days left, so I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well.
Nice. I mean, look at what we did with Zenith Comics. We successfully launched 2 issues from a publisher that really hadn't seen a presence yet. So, and they're going to Andrew Colas is going to be looking to launch 3 through 6 as a collected. So I mean, to have that kind of impact and fan dedication, where they come back for a second, third, fourth issue, is just really, really a lot of fun.
Oh, cool.
Speaking of Kickstarters, I want to put in a plug for Greg Stafford's Prince Valiant return.
Really?
Yes, the Prince Valiant RPG is a classic. What's great about it is it's a very simplified, sort of stripped-down version of the Pendragon game system. But it's designed to be sort of family-friendly. And my first exposure to it was as an undergrad, when I realized that, if I ever had a kid, like, this would be like the perfect game to introduce him to gaming with. And it's been out of print for many years, but Greg Stafford was the writer of Pendragon, he's the most important Arthurian role-playing game designer in that genre, which probably sounds like a really tiny genre, but when you're talking about Arthurian RPGs, like, Greg Stafford is the edge of the
rock star of the medium.
He's the edge of the knife, and so for him to be bringing back Prince Valiant sounds like very promising and a lot of fun, and I wish him all the luck in the world. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Well, he's already raised almost $20,000. He's been open for 5 days, so I'd say he's doing pretty well.
What's his goal?
$5,000.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we're already made and clear, and yeah, that's awesome. Good.
Yeah, I'm just always. I mean, Prince Valiant's one of those licenses. I loved the comic when I was a kid, reading it in the paper on Sundays.
Yep.
I just thought it would ever be an RPG, and I never thought it would be this popular as an RPG. So, good for those guys.
Well, it's not. I don't think that it's popular because it's Prince Valiant. I mean, most people don't even know. They probably have never read Prince Valiant, but they know that it's an Arthurian RPG based on a comic strip, and so from that you can kind of make up everything else,
All right. Okay. Cool. Hey, Chris, you've been kind of uncharacteristically quiet for about a few minutes now. What's something you love that's on your mind right now?
Well, I've got a big thing and a bunch of little things depending on what you need. But I want to go ahead and get the big thing out of the way. Okay. All right. I think I kind of know where the person who suggested this podcast is coming from, because it kind of almost goes without saying that there's way too much negativity in fan circles these days.
Sure.
And that's without even getting into stuff like people harassing the people in the Ghostbusters remake, reboot, reimagining, redo, whatever exactly it is.
Which, by the way, I thought was a hilarious movie. I saw it like 2 weeks ago and I loved it.
Right. All right, but there is way too much negativity and negativity in fandom, and far too much of it mindless. It's a widespread cultural problem, and I'd like to think that even when I dislike something, I've got a good reason for it, and I hate to sympathize with mindless hatred, but I do sort of at least understand, even though I don't appreciate or approve or accept or like a lot of this hatred. It really is. It really can be traumatic when something that you've loved for a long time changes on you, and it's not human nature to embrace change. Yeah. And if the change turns out not to be good, well, it's sort of triply traumatic. And that there are days that I wake up and I could give in to that negativity. I love Star Trek all over my life, and it seems to have been hijacked by 9/11 truthers and people that make Mountain Dew commercials. Yeah. My opinion of the DC films, I think, is well recorded at this point.
Yeah.
But whenever I criticize what's happened to Star Trek or DC Comics or DC films, here is something that I never lose sight of, even if I don't always have a good chance to slip it into the podcast. Okay, this is the absolute best time to be alive as a fan, even if you hate every single one of the reboots, reimaginings, redos, remakes, sequels 30 years after the fact, because it has never been easier to go back and find the original material. I grew up in rural Virginia in the 70s. If I found anything geeky, it really was like that movie The Gods Must Be Crazy. If I found a place selling comic books in rural Virginia in the 70s,
yeah,
Oh my God! I still remember the first time that I picked up a copy of Creepy or Eerie just to see what it was, and I opened it up and there was a boob, and I was just praying that Jesus and my mom didn't see it. I mean, and okay, and I'll use Creepy and Eerie. I've got the vast majority of both the runs of those comics in hardcover coffee table sized books on like top quality paper, and it's complete runs of both magazines. Okay, I could make some sort of, let me make some obscure sci-fi. I could make a reference to the Fantastic Journey and all 13 glorious episodes that ran back in the summer of '77. But guess what? If somebody actually gets curious enough to check out this show, they can see those episodes from 40 years ago.
Yeah, I remember when we used to comb the tables at Comic Cons to get bootleg copies of all these things.
Yeah. Yeah. If somebody is with me and they don't like the Abrams verse, I've got all the original TV shows and movies on Blu-ray. I can watch them in high def whenever I want. Yeah. I mean, even if you don't like this iteration of a show, it's never been easier to just go back and see and remind yourself of the original. I mean, I've always been a big fan of filmmaker Herschel Gordon Lewis, who's famous for inventing the gore film. And when he wasn't making gore movies, he was making hillbilly comedies for people that found hee-haw too highbrow. Okay. A week ago, I ordered a 14-film Blu-ray box set of his work. Yeah. And I'm just sitting here thinking, oh my God, I've got Moonshine Mountain and This Stuff Will Kill Ya on Blu-ray on the way to my house. Yeah. I mean, while I think you can criticize specific iterations of the things you love, I would not rather be a fan at any other time in history except possibly the future, and God willing, I'll get there too.
So just to sort of keep going from what you were talking about, the trailers and the shots of the Doctor Strange film have just really like lit my fire. Like I cannot wait to watch that film. So a month ago or so, I think I wanted to prep for the movie. So I went back and I revved up Marvel Unlimited, and I read the entire Steve Ditko Doctor Strange run, right, on my pad. Yeah. And who would have been able to do that? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, and the only old Doctor Strange comic I could read was the one that got reprinted in Origins of Marvel Comics. And I mean, I remember trying to collect these comics, but, there was no way to go back and read the original.
Yeah.
So I would scream about how awesome the show was, and I had to just kind of take it on faith,
Yeah. It's so funny to read interviews with like veteran comic creators, and they'll talk about how like if you were working at DC in the early '90s and you needed reference material, they pointed you down to the big room where they had all their comics hardbound. You actually had to sit there and flip pages.
Yeah. Of course, now we just all go ask Mark Waid, right? But I mean. But yeah, I know what you mean. And yeah, you're right. It's the access that we have to a lot of this media, and which we presumed were going to be collectible items forever.
Yeah,
it makes it a really great time to be alive. And just if Steve were here, he would talk about how it's the golden age of superheroes on television and film. Like there's just no better time to be alive because there's just so many superheroes out there. Like you can't turn on, is it CW?
Yeah.
Without hitting a superhero show, and so we're to think that in the Suicide Squad movie they were first going to use the Shark Man villain. What's his name? King Shark.
Yeah, King Shark. Yeah.
They were going to use King Shark, but they couldn't because he already appeared in Flash. Okay, how crazy is that?
And it's and for better or for worse, it's got to the point where there's so much of it that it doesn't all have to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the, I remember there was a period, God, it must have been like 81, 82, where like all the genre TV show was The Greatest American Hero and Whiz Kids.
I don't remember Whiz Kids.
Whiz Kids. It was in a way Whiz Kids sort of was sort of predicted like a lot of modern crime shows because it was a bunch of like teenage hackers that had like TRS-80s and could find out any piece of information on God's earth. They sort of were the forerunner of that one team that's on every like criminal CSI Mines NCIS.
Totally, yeah.
The one that can type for like 30 seconds and find out like every piece of information. They sort of presaged that.
The quirky hacker stereotype.
Yes. It was kind of like War Games without all the depressing nuclear war, which would have hurt your chances at a series.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. That was everything we had for genre TV. So,
Yeah.
and let's face it, those shows had to be good, or there wasn't anything else coming.
Speaking of old TV shows that I suddenly remembered, Walt, when you were talking. Okay, somebody help me out. Chris, you might remember this.
Okay.
What was the TV show about? There was a spaceship. They were spacefaring garbage collectors.
Quark.
Quark. That was it. Yes.
Okay. Here we go. Just to add to my point, I've got all 6 episodes of Quark on DVD.
Because of course you do.
If you were in my house right now, I could pour you the beverage of yours. We could go watch Quark the complete series on my 53-inch TV.
That's a date.
There you go.
Where are you at? You're in
I'm in Northern Virginia.
Northern Virginia. Okay. Right.
Yes.
It's a bit of a drive, but not as far for some.
It's all 6 episodes of Quark, man, and I'll have a cold one waiting for you.
Okay. Deal.
Do we all get to bring the dogs?
Well, only if you want to get in good with my wife.
Yeah. So sure. Okay. We're
Now, speaking of, Jason had touched on the trailers that have been coming out. We should talk about those because I mean, Doctor Strange is the thing that had it for me is when he drops to his knees and he's like, "Teach me." I'm like, that's hysterical.
Yeah. And I was a little unsure, like, what were they doing with the Doctor Strange? Because I couldn't figure who the villain was. But then I went back and I read the Steve Ditkos, and there he is. Like, he's kind of a third stringer bad guy. He's one of the guys that helps out Dormammu in one of Dormammu's big plots in Baron Mordo. He's like a Baron Mordo flunky. But he's right there, and you can read all those original stories, and I like the sense of humor that's in it. When they give him the wireless password for Shambhala.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, that's great. I also like the Wonder Woman trailer a lot. It's very exciting and very colorful. Is it Chris Pine?
Yes.
Yeah. The fact that he's not playing Captain Kirk and playing Steve Trevor, I'm totally down with that. I wish he would just play Steve Trevor from now on.
Have they said anything as to why they said it in World War I?
Well, we don't have a firm word on this, but I'm going to take some guesses.
Wait, World War I or World War II?
No, it's set in
World
World
War
War I.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she's gonna have an invisible biplane?
Well, there's no
Something
invisible.
like that. Yeah.
But I think the thing is it's really about her experiencing war for the first time, and the point is that she sees it as awful and pointless, and we have a conception of World War II in many ways that is more noble and heroic than that. That is, we think of it as a struggle to save the world from fascism and evil. And whereas World War I in pop culture is more culturally understood to be a gigantic waste of human life. Like, it's hard to even remember what it was about. I'm not saying now. I know we have a political science professor on the podcast, so I'm sure Chris is like ready to go. But my guess is if you want to portray war as senseless, that's a lot harder to do with World War II than it is with World War I.
Well, also Captain America kind of did superheroes in World War II. I'm not saying that's not big enough for 2 superheroes, but if I'm DC and I'm trying to get my own, cinematic universe started, maybe I don't want to invite comparisons to.
It would beg comparison. It totally. In fact, that would be the first thing everybody would say. They would immediately compare her to Captain America in the first sentence of every review.
And there's not a whole lot of media that deals with World War I. I mean, Savage Worlds, Great World Kickstarter, that notwithstanding, there's just not a whole lot of movies or TV shows that deal with that particular conflict. So you're not stepping on anybody's toes there.
And let's be honest, the scene of Diana jumping out of a trench and like running across no man's land while she gets blasted with a machine gun, like we have all waited all our lives to watch that scene. That's gonna be awesome.
Now, what did you guys think of the Justice League trailer? I mean, like I said, I'm not a huge proponent of DC because I don't know, there's just something about it that just never captures me. But I sat there laughing and being like, wow, this is fun. I mean, some of the costumes I'm gonna have to get used to because I'm a huge fan of the a lot of the WB series that are out.
Yes.
So seeing Flash in armor was a little jarring, but the actor. I thought was very refreshing as far as I understand he's a bit young for the role, but having him jump forward and say I need friends. I mean that was fun.
He struck me as very Peter Parker-ish in that trailer, and the accusation that I've heard about that other people critics have said is that it looks like an Avengers movie. And it's certainly got a lot more humor and a lighter tone. Batman makes a joke. Wonder Woman, they make jokes, which they certainly don't ever do in, Batman versus Superman. So somebody seems to have successfully influenced the makers of this movie that it needs to have a lighter tone and maybe not be as apocalyptic as the films we have seen.
Apocalyptic, that's being generous, right?
Well, yeah, I mean it's very, very bleak, but this movie looks to be much more positive, and it sometimes I think it makes the characters do weird things. I just don't believe for a second that Bruce Wayne would reveal his secret identity to the Flash to convince him to join. It seems to me like there's a million other ways Batman would accomplish that task without revealing his identity to a guy that he basically doesn't know. But it makes for a funny scene, which kind of tells us a lot about the movie.
Yeah, hopefully we won't be seeking therapy after the film debuts.
Right. But it looks fun, and I'm an old school Aquaman fan, and when I heard that they had cast, is it Momoa? How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, Jason Momoa.
Yeah. When I heard that they had cast him as Aquaman, I realized the brilliance of this casting, because Aquaman has been the butt of jokes for 50 years. But how do you solve that? You make him the sexiest man in the movie. Like you cast this guy that every Game of Thrones watcher recognizes instantly, and you overcome the jokes with raw sex appeal, and Aquaman's gonna become popular again after this movie is over. So,
I'm just hoping they have that scene that we've seen in a couple of different iterations online, where you got Aquaman saying basically, "Oh, I talked to fish, huh?" And then you got like these giant sharks coming up and like eating everybody. I mean, or he's riding Cthulhu. I mean, that's some funny stuff.
Yeah. There's a million. I thought, for example, talking about things that we liked. Jeff Johns' take on Aquaman, which was, I think, was it New 52 or was it before the New 52?
Yeah,
relaunched. I can't keep track. Chris, help me out.
Yeah, it was him on New 52. It was
Okay.
it was them putting an A-list creator trying to make one of their D-list characters. Oh, excuse me, C-list characters an A-lister.
Well, what I liked about his run on that was that he and Aquaman kind of confronted his reputation head on from the very first issue. And everyone was sort of making jokes, like even the police were like laughing at him. But he does the job anyway, and he is very kind of stoic and long suffering about it. And I like that he helped people even when they were ungrateful. Which is kind of a big test of being a hero in my book. Like it's okay to be a hero to help people when they thank you for it, but can you even be a hero when they hate you for it? So that was kind of cool to see. I didn't finish reading all of Johns' run, but I did really like it.
Have you guys been reading Abnett's run on Aquaman? Just the Rebirth series, I guess.
No, I haven't yet. I haven't picked it up yet. I saw him in the Rebirth launch issue, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Doesn't he propose to Mira in that story?
He does. I'm guessing by the silence from Walt and Chris, you guys haven't seen it either.
No, but if it's Abnett writing it, I'll go pick it up on Comixology.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's he's doing a lot of table setting, but yeah, it's I picked up the first 3 issues and I really liked it. They're trying to do some cool stuff with Black Manta, which probably needs to be done, make him a more interesting character. But yeah, I would recommend it.
He goes through so many different versions, Black Manta. He's a tough character. Nobody seems to be able to find a version of him that sticks.
He's like the Hawkman of villains.
That's a good comparison. Yes, he is like the Hawkman of villains. Yeah.
But he's got a very iconic look with that big dome helmet. I mean,
like Hawkman. I mean, Hawkman's got the wings and the cool helmet, but no one really knows what to do with them.
Well, Jeff Johns and James Robinson did, but I've never really understood DC's need to get away from that in the New 52, other than the fact that he just wasn't 90s Marvel enough, which just seemed to be the whole New 52 thing in a nutshell.
Yeah, I read their redo of Hawkman and the attempt to kind of consolidate all the different versions, and I liked it. I remember when it was coming out in JSA, and I thought it was just phenomenal work.
It was brilliant, and it became a different but still good book when he handed off to Paul Miotti and Gray. It didn't crater until it got run over by a crossover, as so many good books do.
Yeah.
But there's something positive. Go back and read Jeff Johns and James Robinson's Hawkman.
Now, unfortunately, it's harder to do with DC. They don't have an online service like Marvel Unlimited. You have to buy each individual trade. You can't pay like a subscription. You read it all.
Yes, and we all know that if they don't make it available online for sale, there's no way to get it.
Well,
those big media companies certainly outsmarted us.
Did you guys see that Comixology is now offering an unlimited service?
Yeah, but it's not. It's the list of titles is fairly short.
Yeah, it's not everything, but I mean, as far as offering a big selection of stuff that you don't normally get to read.
Is there stuff in there that you like? Are there a lot of the independent presses on there?
That and a lot of Dark Horse,
okay.
even like classic Dark Horse, like with the old X Comics and Ghost and stuff like that. So,
well, is Usagi Yojimbo still being published through Dark Horse?
Yes, it is.
I would read it just for that.
Oh my God, those are fantastic. And talk about a creator who has weathered the storm with his life for the last couple of years. I mean, he had such family issues that almost crushed him, and then he came out the other side, and he's like, hey guys, I'm still here, and my friend Usagi is with me.
Yeah, I have enormous respect for Sakai. I saw him teaching kids how to draw Usagi at a convention once.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, these things that you'll never forget. I mean, just what a guy, what a nice guy.
I just laughed. I remember I walked into a comic shop in the '90s, and I had just gotten off duty, so I was kind of sweaty, dirty, and I just wanted something light to read, just so I could go home with it and curl up on the couch with my dog. And somebody said, "Hey, have you ever seen Usagi Yojimbo?" And I turned around because I speak Japanese, and I said, "Bunny Rabbit Bodyguard, really?" He goes, "No, dude, you got to read this." So they and even at that point they had a collected edition, a small trade. So I picked it up, and it's just a fantastic way to tell those stories in a way that makes Japan of that period seem less alien to people who don't know about it.
I learned so much about Japanese culture from that book. I mean, that's where I learned about Grasscutter. And of course, then now we can go and look it up. I mean, we're in the Wikipedia age, right? So we'll look up things that we couldn't look up before. But yeah, it's wonderful stuff. What else? Chris, you had a short list. You had other things, little things, other than the big thing.
Yeah, well, another great thing that's happening is the best sci-fi fantasy TV series of the last 50 years, Black Mirror, is coming back for a third season on Netflix. And
wow.
many more people will hopefully get to see what is the most brilliant thing to happen to TV since it went to color.
Was it not on Netflix in its first 2 seasons?
Okay. Keep in mind, I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing to do with Netflix. I couldn't tell you what was on there today or tomorrow or anything else. But I understand at one point it was on there. If it's still on there, I couldn't tell you. I'm a physical media to the death kind of guy.
Nice.
But Netflix is definitely going to be airing season 3 of it. I presume they would get the previous 2, but yes. But if you haven't seen Black Mirror, you have missed one of those things that will remind you of what art and media can be.
Now, for some reason, I thought that this was an anthology series.
It is.
Okay.
It is, and that's why I say it's the best show in 50 years, because it's the best thing I've seen since the original Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's like Twilight Zone. Yeah, okay. All right.
Yes, but it's most Twilight Zone episodes have a moral to them.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
It's very rare that something bad happens to a good person on Twilight Zone, and if it does, it's because it just absolutely breaks your heart, like poor Henry Bemis in Time Enough at Last when he breaks his glasses.
Yeah, and the moral is usually delivered to us in Rod Serling's beautiful Dead.
Yes, indeed. Black Mirror is the Twilight Zone for the 21st century. It really, I think it. I don't know if it will since it's not always as optimistic as it's rarely as optimistic as the Twilight Zone. I don't know if it will speak beyond our times, but it's brilliantly well done. And oh my God, if there's no crime in speaking to your times. I mean, it's the most thought-provoking look at our culture and what it's become and what it might become that I've seen. I can watch it endlessly, and just it's just so brilliantly well done, and I absolutely can't wait to see what they've got in store for season 3.
Well,
but if you haven't seen Black Mirror, go watch it.
Well, I like cultural criticism. I like shows that are willing to critique our current present day culture. So that sounds totally at my alley.
Absolutely.
Hey, speaking of things that critique modern culture, a friend of the podcast, Dan Taylor, is running a Kickstarter right now called Donald of the Dead. About a zombie outbreak at the Republican National Convention. Donald of the Dead, check it out now on Kickstarter. That's my only pimpage this whole podcast. So we have been talking for about an hour. Anything else we want to bring up before we wrap it up? Chris, did you have a longer list you wanted to mention?
Well, I just had one other short thing. I have to give much credit to writer Robert Venditti, whose name I'm actually going to pronounce correctly for once. I've read. I've stuck with him through a couple at least a couple relaunches on Green Lantern, and other than that extremely forgettable DCU, probably the most inessential thing DC has ever done. This guy is writing the best Hal Jordan that's ever been written.
Oh,
and if you're his Valiant stuff.
No, my comic budget is tiny and it's shrinking all the time. So I just kind of buy the DC titles that I've been buying since I was doing it with pocket change.
But he's got Quark on Blu-ray.
Well, I have to prioritize what I love and what I have time for.
I don't mean that as a criticism. I mean exactly what you just said. I mean it's a priority thing. Yeah. Totally.
I'm getting a lot more enjoyment out of movies and TV than I am modern comics.
The hillbilly slasher movies that you were talking about.
Oh my God! You can show those to me on my deathbed, and I will laugh through the ventilator. Okay. You see, because I mean, I've lived in the American South my whole life, and so much of what is said about us is ignorant, oftenly willfully so, and frequently mean-spirited. Wow. But somebody who's willing to make fun of the South with a sense of affection, like Lewis does, oh my God, I love that. I love that.
I'm very new to the South. Like, I'm not a Southerner. I just moved here about 4 years ago. I'm definitely still kind of learning how things are done. I make no claim to be anything other than a California boy, but I do see what you're saying, and you're right. Like, Southerners like humor that makes fun of Southerners if it's done with kindness.
Yes.
If it's done with a kind of loving spirit, and I get that. I totally get that.
Yeah, amongst the more savvy Southern commentators, we have a moment when we're consuming media when we're like, here comes the Confederate flag. I think Richard Pryor once went on this great rant about how the one thing he hated about the N word was that all of a sudden it goes from being a fight to, oh wow, now I'm not even a human being anymore. And there's just sort of that, oh, okay, all right, I'm not a human being anymore. I'm just a racist. Just letting you know right away. I don't think you're a full human being. It's just such a slap in the face. I hate it. But this is a love podcast. I'm sorry. Love podcast.
We almost got out of here alive.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, anyway, there have been three great Green Lantern writers. John Broome. Nobody writes the Green Lantern villains better than him. Nobody comes up with better Green Lantern plots than Jeff Johns.
Yeah.
But actually making Hal a character that you're like, wow, I wonder what Hal will do next. Nobody's ever done that better than Robert Venditti.
I confess, I've got very little interest in Hal as a person. Yeah.
Well, but here's the thing: Venditti has finally cracked that character.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good. That needs to get done.
Venditti took over the title right after Jeff Johns, after Johns' like 87th. The universe is threatened crossover, and Hal Jordan has to take over leadership of the Green Lantern Corps. But the whole crux of Venditti's title is that Hal is a crappy leader.
Oh.
And it's just so funny, like wow, the whole point of this book is the main character is really it kind of sucks at his job.
You know what this reminds me of? I mean, I've actually this done before, and it was JLA Year One.
Yeah, well, that's Mark Waid. Hey, great stuff from Waid, huh?
And Mark Waid was so Hal is on the team. It's Green Lantern, Flash, Black Canary, Aquaman, and I think Manhunter.
Yeah, great stuff.
And Hal at one point, like 3 issues into this 4-issue series, confronts Dinah and says, I just don't know if I'm cut out to be the team leader. I just don't know. And she laughs in his face, and she's everybody knows Barry's the leader. Everybody knows that, and he was the only guy that was stressing out over the weight of leadership.
Yeah.
And it was totally invented in his own head.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, he's Venditti is on the post rebirth phase like everybody else is, and not only is he doing a great job of doing Hal, he's done a great job of tying together a lot of loose ends from a lot of the other Lantern projects that were going on.
That's right.
Like I really loved Cullen Bunn's Sinestro book.
Yeah.
And it totally plays off of the events of that. So it's always nice that when somebody else does a 20-issue series and a subsequent creator respects what that creator did, even though it didn't last all that long.
Yes.
So it's just extraordinarily well done. That automatically rises to the top of my comic pile every single month. So and honestly, once they get this whole Watchmen thing out of their system, if we get more and more DC comics like that, it may be salvageable. We'll see. I have some hope for DC.
Wow. All right, let's end there. We've got the word hope.
All right,
perfect.
Fair enough. I just want to work in one recommendation I keep meaning to bring up on podcasts, keep forgetting. Capra by Michael, I'm going to pronounce it Fiffe, Fiffe. It's available now on Comixology. It's a big love letter to Suicide Squad. Old school Suicide Squad, and it's great. It's creator owned. You can definitely tell it's small press, but it's I've been enjoying this more than I have the regular Suicide Squad releases from DC for quite a while. So that is my last big endorsement before we sign off. Anybody else want to?
How do you spell it, Mike?
Fiffe is the writer's name. The comic is called Copra. Capra.
All right, I'm looking it up right now.
And it's mainly Suicide Squad. He works in a lot of other homages as well. I mean, there's one character you can just tell is Doctor Strange. He's second half of the Suicide Squad. But I know I hear Chris chuckling. It's really well done. It's really worth checking out.
Those are chuckles of glee.
Chuckles of glee.
No, I was laughing. Laughing at you can really tell it's Doctor Strange. That was funny. Sorry.
Well, it's not like he says, "Hello, my name is Physician Orpheus," and
he could be Dr. Fate though instead of Doctor Strange. It would still be DC.
He's got a goatee and a penthouse apartment and a girlfriend who looks like Doctor Strange's girlfriend.
Totally Doctor Strange. Yeah, you're right.
I could be wrong. Maybe.
No, you're right. You're right. When I was a kid, I swear to God, that was the thing that made Doctor Strange different than every other superhero. His girlfriend lived with him. Remember when Chris was talking about how he opened up a copy of Eerie or something and saw a breast? Like when I was that kid, it was Clea in a nightshirt, right? Like walking around the sanctum, and I'm like, oh my God, like don't let my dad see. Yeah, totally.
I'm not sure how to segue from that. Walt, you got anything?
Yeah, I just want to throw a quick shout out to one of my brothers in arms, Nick Garber. It's his birthday today, so we're figuring out a way to plant machine guns on a walker. He's one of the creative forces behind Guerrilla Comics. He does Phantom Hawk and a bunch of other titles. So happy birthday, you old bastard!
When you say walker, you mean like an AT-AT walker or like an old person tennis ball?
Like an old person walker. We're gonna put tennis balls on the bottom, and a Mark 19 on top. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's truly terrifying.
Our place from Twilight 2000.
What is it?
Our place from Twilight 2000.
So you know what it is.
Oh God, that thing wrecked more Twilight 2000 campaigns than I think anything ever.
You know, and I got to tell you, as somebody who's actually fired them and used them on several different occasions, there is nothing funnier than a fully automatic grenade launcher.
The only I think a distant second would be like fully automatic shotgun, which also ruined a lot of Twilight 2000 back in the day.
You sporting either an HK Claw or a Saiga combat shotgun? Yeah, those things are brutal.
Yep, as my plots learned. Well, that was going to be the villain of this week.
Well, hey, we just came back around to a gaming reference. I think that's probably the best place for us to end then.
Right on.
So, Rick and Morty. I love Rick and Morty. If you're not watching Rick and Morty, what's wrong with you? Go watch Rick and Morty. All right, that's the last thing I'm going to endorse.
Thanks for having
all
me.
right. Hey, thanks for coming out, Chris,
Thanks,
Walt,
Mike.
Jason. Always a pleasure, guys.
Yeah.
And listeners, we'll see you next time on the BAMF Podcast.